How do you look at the parallels between fostering creativity in jazz, for example, versus business?
Yeah, there's so many things there. I mean, I think that one of the things is just that going back to some of the things I just mentioned before, the flexibility and the fluidity within the organizational structure. Um, for example, in organizations, having concept of a team, but a concept of a team that is very that is not fixed. So, for example, right, I might be in an organization with 1,000 people, and I might be a member of many teams, right? And the way that those teams are structured, they might overlap, right? And also they might be virtual teams, right? They might be teams that just come together to work on something, and then they disband after that. So, I think that's one of the key things is having a very fluid organizational structure. And one of the things even about the Ottawa Jazz Orchestra is we don't even have, like, when we do different performances, we never have the same ensemble, right? We have different size ensembles, and even perhaps during the evening we might change the ensemble in different ways. So the actual grouping of the musicians and the way that they're organized is often uh, changing all the time. And then the other thing I think that's really important is going back to that sort of that individuality and the team, is that having people who are, even though they are strong individuals and have something unique that they're going to contribute, and it's probably the reason that they've been hired for the gig, they also don't have much of an ego, right? And they're always willing to subjugate themselves, right? And whatever individual thing that they might want to contribute for the good of the team.
Mm. I mean, just on the point about fluidity in organizing teams and businesses broadly, how do you balance structure versus no structure?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a really tricky thing because even if you look at, for example, jazz, if you look at even different styles of jazz, so there's something that they call free jazz, right, which is lacking in structure, doesn't have a lot of structure, and sometimes musicians will go into a performance and they don't have any clue what they're going to play at all, right, and they're going to decide it on the spur of the moment, and then it just takes form organically. And I've done performances like that where we pretty much did that. We just got on stage and we maybe took a hint from an audience member or someone, and then we just started something, and it just took shape. Uh, so it's entirely possible to do it. It's also entirely possible to do it and have it be a total disaster, and have it be something that's not actually very interesting or compelling to an audience, to the consumers, right? Because it sometimes can devolve into something that is just very introspective for the musicians, and maybe they're really getting into it and enjoying it, but the audience is not appreciating it at all. So you're constantly, I think, trying to always have, like, just enough structure is one of the most important principles, I think. And even when we are performing, if I'm, say, performing in a little jazz trio, the most exciting things happen when I know that we can take some risks and go outside and explore and do some things. But you always have to be aware of the structure and the possibility of things falling apart, right? And so someone always has to be looking out for that and making sure that doesn't happen. So I think it just goes back very much to the two things. I think maybe it's one is knowing what are the essential things that you always have to have, and then also having that awareness to always uh, keep an ear or an eye out for those things. So, for example, in music, typically you have time, right? You have like a constant beat, a constant pattern going, and you never want to lose that. If you start slowing down or start speeding up, it sounds really weird, right? And it's probably going to result in something bad happening. So no matter what they might be doing, even if the musicians go into some interesting, complex rhythms, they're always trying to be very aware of the need for that, and keeping the tempo and the beat and the groove always there, right? And so often, I mean, same thing in business, right? We have things that we know that are just essential, that always have to be there. And if we keep an eye out for those things, yeah, that really helps a lot.
Do you see more companies adopting a more fluid org structure, and how exactly do you see them doing that?
Yeah. So the thing is that I think that the problem we have, which is not a new problem, and it's gone on for many years and many decades. And I've worked with small companies and big companies. I've worked with many big companies who wanted to become more agile and were going through agile transformations, and so many of them really had truly the best intent to want to get faster and get more agile, and not even just business organizations, but governments as well, right? Uh, and they try. A lot of them try really hard, and for some reason they can't seem to do it. And the reason generally I see is that the culture that they have is so ingrained that it's so difficult for them to change that mindset, right? Even when sometimes there is an initiative from the top of the organization, the problem is you've got so many people in some cases in some organizations who have worked in a particular kind of way for years or decades, and to get them to unlearn those things is pretty tricky. So, I think that, and one of the things that I think that we saw at Shopify, and that the Shopify leadership uh, realized fairly early on, is that as you get bigger, you are generally your culture is going to transform, and there are some things that if you lose those things, they're extremely difficult to get back. So you have to really value those things and do as much as you possibly can to not lose those things.